As we get down to our last unit, we've changed the order of the presentation a little bit from what we planned at the very beginning, because a number of the things that we planned to put in this last couple of units, we've already talked about in other units. So in this last unit, we're just going to talk about ensuring success. Number one, based on paying attention to the judging criteria. And then second, having a backup plan. So the judging criteria are extremely important, but they differ depending on the situation. We've advised students from a couple different competitions, including the iGEM and also a FIRST robotics competition. And those competitions differ in the number of awards, the number of teams that are awarded each award, the criteria for judging, and how much of the work, how much of the criteria, how much of the judging is based on on-site performance versus things that are prepared ahead of time, like the wiki. We also will talk in this video about conferences, because there are some conferences that have graduate student competitions, and those are also, they have criteria for judging those as well. So when you're presenting at a conference, at a presentation, at a competition, you're not just reporting on what you've done. Just as we talked about with writing. Writing is not a report. A presentation is not just a report. It has to be persuasive. You're trying to convince the judges that you meet the criteria and that you should get the award. And so it's somewhat like a sales pitch. If you look at the iGEM criteria for judging, it says specifically, it is your responsibility to convince the judges that your team has achieved each of the medal criteria that you're working toward. Now I want to stop there and pay attention to that. You have to convince the judges about each individual criteria. That means that you need to specifically address those criteria. And it goes on to say that. This is accomplished by documenting your work with care. That's done in the wiki and other things that you submit, the judging form. But also you need to be clear and direct when you present your work. And that says that in the presentation, you need to be direct about the fact that you are addressing certain criteria. Now, iGEM has two different types of awards. One are called medals, the second called awards. The medals are the bronze, silver, and gold. Bronze is just basic. If you participate all the way through the competition from beginning to end, you will probably get bronze. 17% of the teams in last year's competition got the bronze medal. Silver means that you have achieved the key pillars of iGEM, which they call engineering success, collaboration, and human practice. And 27% of the teams achieved that level last year. Gold says you've achieved excellence in multiple areas beyond silver. 50% of the teams were able to achieve that. So it's entirely possible, it's very possible to achieve the gold medal. Only 6% of the teams achieved no medal. Basically, those are teams that registered at some point, but then dropped out of the competition, did not complete the requirements. For the bronze medal, all that you need to do is basically complete. You complete the wiki pages for attribution, project description, contribution, complete the registry pages for your parts, the video presentation, the judging form, and you do a presentation and answer questions. If you do that minimum amount, you can get a bronze medal. Every team should be able to do that if they complete the competition. Silver also is relatively straightforward. You need to demonstrate engineering success. That means that you design something, you build it, you test it, you learn from it, and you redesign to show that you have completed one design cycle. You show that on the appropriate page on the wiki. Collaboration, almost any cooperation with any other team counts as collaboration. You all have done that. Human practices, as long as you show you have any sort of positive impact on the world, you can get the human practices. Proposed implementation, as long as you show that it has some chance of working. you can get that. So basically, each team should be able, if they document all those things on the appropriate wiki pages, should be able to get silver. Gold is the one that's a little bit more difficult. Again, according to the 2022 standards, you had to get 3 out of 6 of the categories listed: integrated human practice, improvement of an existing part, project modeling, proof of concept, partnership, or education and communication. Now, 3 of those are relatively straightforward because they build directly on the silver medal categories. Education and communication. If you do any sort of an outreach project, you will get that point. That's the easiest by far. Partnership. For partnership, you have to show a long-term collaboration with one other team. And specifically, they say that it should have shared objectives. That's the part that you need to focus on, again, both in the wiki and in your presentation, to show this long-term collaboration with one other team. And then integrated human practices. For integrated human practices, as opposed to human practice in general, you need to show that somehow what other people said impacted your work. As you talked with industry, as you talked with potential consumers, as you talked with government regulators, how did you change your project in order to meet those criteria that they suggested would be important for success? So the modification of your project based on others' input, that's what you need to document. Again, both on the wiki pages and in your presentation. The other 3 criteria for the gold medal are a little bit more difficult, and they require something beyond the silver. Improvement of an existing part. This is not just modification of an existing part, but you have to test specifically the old part against the new part and show that there's some improvement. Project modeling. If you do modeling, again, it's fairly straightforward to get this, but not every team can do that. Proof of concept. You have to have a working prototype of your project. So if you meet those criteria, that's great. If not, concentrate on the other 3. Now, again, for the iGEM medals, you need to point out specifically in your presentation why you think you meet those criteria. So you need to spend time describing that area in your presentation. You need to show it on the judging form, which points to your wiki pages, and in the presentation, you need to have sections of your talk specifically for those 3 or more points from gold: education, partnership, and IHP. So for the structure of your PowerPoint, most PowerPoints, again, as we talked about before, will begin with the motivation, the goal, some sort of an overview of your project. Make sure that you give an overview so people know the big scope of the big picture. Then go into the details of the wet lab and dry lab, particularly pointing to the engineering success and your proposed implementation. But then again, make sure that you have sections in your talk specifically for IHP, collaboration, and education. And it would be good to mark those with like subsection markers in the PowerPoint so that the judges pay attention. Oh, they're trying to get this particular criteria. And then that alerts them to that you think you qualify for that particular criteria. Now, the awards are a little bit different. There are 3 different types of awards. The grand prizes, those are based on really exceptional projects, things that actually have a working prototype, actually are almost ready for market. So unless you are really have an extremely good project, the chances of getting that award are very small. Similarly, the track prizes are for demonstrated achievement. You have to have basically a working prototype in order to qualify for those awards. The ones that you may be eligible for are the special awards. In 2022, there were 16 different categories. So if you are applying for those, you need to read the requirements carefully, and again, make sure in your judging form that you address each of those criteria for each of those awards. But remember, only about 1% of the total projects are nominated for a particular category. And so even if you get to the nomination stage, even if you don't get that prize, that's quite good already. Okay, let me talk just briefly about the first robotics competition. There were two different basic categories in that the judges award prizes for. One is basically for the engineering. And there are 6 different awards related to engineering. Autonomous award is basically for the ability of the robot to sense and respond to its environment. That means you need to build in sensors that it can automatically do a task without programming. Creativity is based on the strategy that you use. You build a robot specifically for some sort of competitive strategy. Engineering, that you have professional design practice. Industrial design shows that you have a balance between form, function, and aesthetics. Innovation and control deals with the control mechanism, either the electrical, mechanical, or software elements. And quality refers to the robustness, the ability to withstand banging around, to be able to be fixed easily, whatever. If you think you qualify for one of these, you need to be able to explain it to the judges in person. So probably your best strategy is to think which of those categories you think you are most likely to be able to achieve, and focus just on that category. Focus on being able to explain why you believe you might be eligible for that award. Now, the other category of awards are the team attribute awards. And these have to do with your cooperation, your teamwork. So those are things that you don't explain to the judges. Yes, we're very cooperative. These are things that the judges observe as they watch you as a team. So these are things that you don't prepare for in terms of talking to the judges. Again, these are team attributes that they observe in the course of the competition. So the other area that we want to talk about is graduate student competitions. And this is an area where you have a lot of experience. Some conferences will have awards for the best graduate student poster or the best paper, graduate student paper. So could you tell us a little bit about what those awards are?
I think the poster award is different from the paper award. For the poster award, your design of the poster, your ability to talk about your poster will play an important role. But the best paper award, actually, the judges might have read your whole paper before you do the final presentation. So no matter what, I would say that genius is only 1% inspiration, but 99% of perspiration.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, the award is based on what you have done, not overnight,
Right.
but you have accumulated a lot of good effort, and finally, people see your effort.
Right, so it's not just what you present or the appearance of the poster, it's the research behind that in many cases.
Many times, the good research or paper award, even poster award, the advisor behind the scene or the lab behind the scene plays an important role too.
Right. Yeah, so those are things that you can't prepare for as much on the spot, prepare to meet a criterion. They may not even list the particular criteria that the judges are going by. These are based more on the research that you've done over the long term. And even professors, you apply for certain criteria for grants or for awards, for teaching practice. All of those have criteria for excellence as well.
I remember when I received the MOE Teaching Practice Research Award. When I did the presentation, one of the judges told me, pay attention to your presentation, to what extent your research benefited students' achievement. So in other words, don't talk about your own research. Talk about your contribution to students' learning. That's a good reminder.
Because that was the main criterion that they were looking for that would set you apart in teaching practice from other people.
And before we start to present our work, we have already written an extensive, detailed report on what we have done. So this award is not just based on your oral presentation, it's also based on what you wrote before, whether you met the criteria.
So again, that's like the graduate student competitions. It's based on the quality of the work, not just the quality of the presentation.
But sometimes, when you receive an award, it depends on who you are competing with.
Sure.
And some competitors are really too powerful, So I would say it's 70% of hard work, but 30% of good luck.
Right. Who's in that particular competition or conference that you're competing against. So recently you received an award for contribution to Indigenous language research. Can you tell us a little about that?
This research, of course, is based on my 30-year hard work on my research on the Yami language. And of course, what's unique about this award, it's basically because I use a different approach to conserve Indigenous language. I use digital humanities. And as a result, the MOE saw the uniqueness of language documentation and conservation.
So again, this is something that's based not on research in one particular year, but over a long period of time. And again, this is the benefit of doing long-term research, that you can continue to build on one topic rather than something new every year. If you had tried something new every year, this never would have come about. So again, we encourage you in your research to work on a continuing project rather than changing every year. And it's very beneficial in the long run.